Yeah, when you're ready.
Okay. So welcome to another episode of the Manchester SEO podcast. Today we've got Sam Penny, who's SEO manager at Rest Super.
Yeah, that's correct.
All the way in Australia.
Yeah.
So you're a Brit?
I am, yeah. I'm originally from Manchester. Yeah.
And, it's no secret, is it? We're related.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You're my nephew. You might see a bit of similarity, obviously.
Both very handsome.
Handsome, articulate.
That's it.
Yeah. Very interesting, obviously. It's great to have you on.
Thank you very much. Yeah, very nice to be here.
You've been over here for a few weeks.
Yeah, about 5 weeks.
5 weeks. You go back on Sunday?
Yeah, we fly back. So tomorrow, my birthday, turn 32 years old.
Is it your birthday?
You knew that. It's in the diary, I'm sure.
Yeah. I've been trying to get you on for a while.
Yes, yeah. It's been a bit of a hectic schedule, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm like a dignitary when I come. I'm like, I'm just kind of going around different family members and kissing babies.
Mainly because you've been involved with SEO for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Which we'll touch on in a minute. And we actually haven't done an SEO podcast at all.
So despite the name.
Yeah, despite the name. Well, I didn't want it to be complete cure for insomnia. And to go on about SEO all the time might get a bit stale, but it's really good to be able to talk about it a little bit. I suppose we should start with a bit more about you.
Yeah, sure.
So how did you get into SEO?
I think generally, right, I feel like we're still in an era where majority of people who are in SEO kind of fell into it, you know, and I've heard that from a lot of people that they sort of fell into SEO.
Yeah.
At my the old agency I worked for, Optimizing in Melbourne, we had people coming from the local university, and we were training them, and it was part of their degree, and they had a very much a foundational sort of education and work experience, and then they would get hired afterwards and, you know, go to full time after their studies. But I think for a lot of us, like for me, I'd originally applied to study pharmacy at university. I was on this Masters of Pharmacy because I was always into, you know, chemistry. I really enjoyed chemistry, but at the same time, I'd been quite into English, and I thought I'd had a bit of a, you know, way with words maybe. So but when I got into the pharmacy degree, it just sort of wasn't what I was expecting. Yeah. And my girlfriend at the time, she studied English, and I thought, you know, she had about 8 contact hours a week, and she got to read books all day. And, you know, it's kind of like, it's it's your job right now to read books. Yeah. And after the first year, I just thought, I don't want to become a pharmacist. It's just not the right job fit for me. So, you know, I did a English and politics degree. Okay. And then after that, I started doing some work at a non-profit. So it used to be called Relate. Which was Princess Di's charity. So it's a charity for, for counselling basically, and a lot around domestic abuse and things like that. So I started working with them, and I figured out that you could get £100,000 a year from Google for free for advertising. Right. So that was my first little step into it. I got them this ad grant. From there, I went on to do a master's in marketing. I got into... I'd been working sort of concurrently in journalism at McCunion Matters, a local sort of Manchester paper. And after that, it was kind of just more and more digital, more and more sort of, you know, learning about WordPress and JavaScript and publishing and writing. And then this sort of led me down this wonky path towards search, and then I became a full-time SEO, and you know by the time I left optimizing. I was senior SEO lead and, doing a lot of sort of training and helping out on the larger clients, which was quite cool.
Yeah.
And then, and just a broad spectrum of clients, I think, which has really kept me interested. That's what's cool about agency.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the kind of, maybe the whole foundation of this podcast.
Variety's good, I think.
Yeah, you work with so much variety and, no 2 days are the same.
No.
And then I find myself here, and I've always been really interested in finance. So I work for a super fund, which is a big investment fund over in Australia. And I've been there about 2 years, and I'm the in-house SEO. And I guess that's the long and short of it. But for me, it's only getting better.
Yeah. Is it? This is a stupid question, but is it very different in-house to in an agency?
Yeah, it's wild. It's wildly different. I think, SEOs face a lot of challenges on both agency side and in-house. I think for me, when you start off, the main challenge is that you need to learn the technical aspects of search, and like search is so complicated when it comes to on page, off page, and PR, and then you've got the technical side of it. And I think you get to a stage when knowing SEO is the foundation, it's the easy part.
Sure.
But the hard part is actually getting stuff done. And I think that agency and in-house, the barriers to getting things done are very, very different.
Right.
So agency, you're very limited by the fact that, you might have one specialist or account manager, and you might have a dozen accounts or half a dozen accounts, or some agencies that more, I don't know how to describe it, more chill agencies would, you hear stories of people having 100 clients, and
I've heard many of them.
Yeah, so have I. So I think when you're in agency, your main challenge is, okay, how do I prioritize my own time? How do I work with the business owner or the marketing manager to really get the highest return on investment for the money that's being exchanged there? And there's a lot of times in SEO, I think, when really good SEOs know which dumpster fires they can let burn. Because I see a lot of it. You do an audit, and an audit that you'll get from a client that said, I worked with this SEO agency, and they're very focused on the alt tags, for example. But it's one of those things where it's like, well, maybe we get the content strategy going first, or the PR strategy, or whatever's going to provide that return. So I think prioritizing, and also just the resources that a business owner has available. When I do an onboarding, I'd say, do you have web development capacity? And sometimes they'd say, no, because of this project, we're blocked for 6 months.
You're right.
So we go, okay, what can we do that doesn't involve web developers, or how can I put them together a business case for another web developer? So I think, agency is much more around the capacity of the client and your own time and managing it. But in-house, I think it's you are spanning across developers. You're spanning across content teams, the PR teams, and your job is really to advocate for SEO. Right. You're often an internal consultant, so you have to. You don't. And some businesses, they have like SEO as a product manager, and they have their own. They have their own dev teams, their own content teams, and they have a really strong budget. But often in a corporate environment, everyone's competing for everybody's competing for a piece of pie. So you really have to be the advocate for search, and sometimes you have to go into those meetings and explain to the C-suite. You might go and say, okay, we've got these targets for links, X, Y, Z, and then you might have somebody who's, a titan of some industry, some industry, and they've moved to that corporate environment, and they go, sorry, what is SEO again? You know, so I, you know, I've had that dealing with some businesses when I was with agency side,
Right.
And you know, but I think in an in-house environment, you really have to be the sole spokesperson for SEO. So I think it's all about getting stuff done, but it's a very different environment in-house at agency, which is cool as well. You know, that's part of the challenge of it.
It's important. We had a sales trainer on this morning as well. We've done a few podcasts today, and it's some of her clients that she coaches aren't actually in sales; they're in HR or they're because
that's interesting.
within, like you're saying, you're having to sell SEO and the strategy and the benefits to internally to your own people, and that can make a difference with you in your career massively.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess whatever, if you're in HR and you want to implement a new system for recruitment, for example, and it's going to save X number of, X number of pounds per year, or it's going to increase retention by, 5% or something like that, which saves money. You have to learn to sell that, you know. And I've not done any sales training, but I imagine it's maybe emotional language or using numbers. But yeah, I think sales is. I think we all use sales in our roles fairly frequently, whether we know we are or not. Yeah.
So, I mean, when we talk about SEO, we're discussing what we could talk about on the podcast and the different areas, and I suppose a good place to start would be AI actually, because obviously over the last few years it's come into more or less every single industry, I think, and it's got benefits, it's got drawbacks, it's got everything like that. What are your thoughts on AI from an SEO perspective?
Yeah, I mean, big question, really. A big one. I think that, I think at the moment, I don't think we've had a huge amount of impact from AI to how we do our jobs day to day. I think there's a lot of inertia, I think that people are used to using Google search. People are used to Siri not being very good. So I think that people are using Google products in a fairly similar way at the moment. And I also think that the AI products are not really, I think they're not really up to scratch yet. I think they do. I mean, obviously they're amazing. There's some really cool uses for them in terms of I've built little Chrome plugins to do things, and I've used ChatGPT for that. And, even just things like screenshotting. Somebody sends you a picture of a table, and you're turn this into a CSV. Time saving. So in that sense, it has had a little bit of an impact internally, but I don't think, I don't think that the actual search products, as in, Copilot or the AI overviews. I know ChatGPT have just announced their search product, and they're getting people in to test it at the moment.
Wow, I hadn't heard about that.
Yes, yeah. It's very recent. So in the past couple of weeks. So, and I think it's really hard with this kind of soothsaying, because we don't know. Products are so emergent, and there's so many factors that I'm a bit wary of people that can say, that this is what the future is going to look like. Because I think there's that classic thing that nobody predicted the internet. No. One of the biggest, the most impactful inventions of the modern era. Nobody really predicted this, So I think we can just speculate. But so I think in terms of processes and things like that, obviously Google's been using AI in its products for quite a long time, but I think that's almost a little bit of a smart ass answer to be like, well, actually, you know, AI has been impacting SEO for a long time.
Yeah.
But I think really what we're talking about is large language models. And I think that large language models, even though they haven't a huge impact right now, I think eventually we are going to see less traffic. I think we're going to see lower click-through rates from AI overviews. I think Siri is going to get a lot smarter. I think, you know, whatever the little like Alexa and Google Home and things like that, I think they're going to get a lot smarter, and people will change to, you know, doing a lot more searches for voice search.
Sure.
I actually spoke to Fabrice Cannell, who's product manager at Bing.
Okay.
I spoke to him at the end of last year because he was speaking in Sydney.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was cool, and he's a really, really nice guy. Bless him, he was a little bit jet lagged, and also he just, as well, it was an intense time for him because remember at the time Microsoft had signed that $10 billion deal with ChatGPT, with OpenAI, and they'd integrated OpenAI into their product
fairly quickly.
Yeah, very, very, very quickly, and it was called like Bing Chat, wasn't it? You know. And now it's Copilot. And he said, I was looking for the specific numbers, I couldn't find them, but it was something like we're already seeing a 10% reduction in click-through rate because people are using the responses from chat to get their answers. But something he said that was quite interesting was that the quality of the people coming to the website was significantly higher. So I think maybe the people that do click through are more engaged, higher purchase intention, and I guess that's what I took it to mean. So I think we will see lower click through rate, which I think it's probably going to impact people the most that work in that niche site space. Are you on niche sites, sort of Twitter much? Like they're quite a noisy area of Twitter. You know, people that are building sites around specific topics and they monetize them.
I hear a lot about it, especially on YouTube, where people are talking about SEO in general and what's working at the moment, and it's usually about content generation. Mainly.
Yeah, that's it. Content generation at scale, and also. Yeah, because I guess the niche site space is you spin up a site, you know, it's a specific site about travel or...
So I find that most people are talking about it, are trying to save time or trying to mass produce and like a cheat for it. And what you find with SEO is it might work short term, but you can't do anything well without a bit of effort.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally agree.
It's any length of... because something might work short term. Maybe years ago it'd be backlinks. You just buy a load of backlinks, and then like, well, no, we want the best kind of search results possible for the user because we want them to come back and use it. And so you can't risk it just being based on one thing.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said before, I just don't think the products are quite there. Like there's such a stark contrast between something written by like a genuinely really good copywriter that's been speaking to a subject matter expert, you know, and they write something and they might use just their understanding of the customer and their use of metaphor or in the financial services space, like a large language model might tell you that you can avoid tax or that you can not pay tax for a certain thing, but it's like, does your brand want to be promoting that even if it's technically correct, So I still think there are quite a lot of risks, and I think you're right. The niche site space is probably using it to create shortcuts or generate revenue from content because you have affiliates or ads from traffic. And I think a lot of that, they have been hit quite hard since the helpful content update. And I do think that niche sites are, through large language models and chat search, they're probably going to be impacted pretty heavily. I
think Google specifically has tried to keep people more on the search results than going to the sites anyway. From like people sort of search for that that kind of area where you can just drop down and get the answer to something.
Well, for sure. Yeah.
But actually, like you say, if someone actually wants a service or a product,
100%.
they will go to that if you provide the right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, if we think about, so how is AI going to affect the role of SEOs in the medium term?
Yeah.
Well, like you say, for a non-informational query, like something like buy running shoes or, you know, like Thai food near me or something like that. Like, people don't, like, users don't want an AI generated response. There's lots of Thai food near you. And that's, you know, you say Google has kept people on the search results. And I think that's partly, of course, because you can sell more ad space.
Sure.
But I think like a Google map result is a much better result than 10 blue links having to go in and see, you know, what's the address of this place. And, you know, it's like, they're building the
there's more depth to what these people see.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just a better product. And you know, if I want to buy some Hoka running shoes, for example, like I want to go to the Hoka website or I go in the shopping tab, and at that point I'm not looking for that AI overview. So I think there are SEOs and digital marketers behind that have such complicated roles, you know, like I was saying before about in-house and agency SEO, the amount of knowledge that you need to know about like a product and user experience and the technical parts of a site, that I don't think that AI in the sort of medium term can massively disrupt the role of SEOs, because it's such a complicated role and it requires a knowledge of so many different disciplines, so much communication and so much empathy that you know, how could a large language model response or, you know, or a voice search kind of replace that at the moment?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I remember struggling with a site a couple of years ago now, and I said, I messaged you and said, can you help me with this? Because I'm not sure what's happening. And your knowledge on a different part of the SEO, it was a site that had been moved from PHP to WordPress, and we were struggling to work out why it wasn't going up, and you did a crawl of it and realized, you know, that we hadn't put any redirections in from old pages that were different URLs and things like that, and it was something that I thought, I need to start looking at this now. This is really important.
I think I remember it had been the job of the developer or something like that, and then you say the developer hadn't done it, and you go, you know, it's one of those things where it's like it takes such a level of attention to detail, and that's why SEO's role is so difficult, right? Because there are some things that you'd presume a developer would do, or you'd presume a content writer would do, or, you know, but the SEO is often the person that bridges the gap between all of these different roles, you know.
It's you know, when I first started, I remember talking to someone. He said, "Well, what do you focus on to get most traffic on?" And I think it was content at the time, optimizing content. And he was I asked him. He said, "Well, I'm solely focused on technical." And so I was confused me at the time, because I know there's three phases. There's three. You know, you've got technical, you've got on page and off page, and you know, if you want to do a good job, you've got to be. And so I was interested for you. You know, you talked about, you know, in an agency, looking at where can you get the most bang for their buck for your clients' money, and that varies, I suppose, in each one, because you're looking at, it's like doing a SWOT analysis, isn't it? So one's really good at content, but they're technically poor, and or they're good on content, but you know, and you're looking at competitors and what they've got, and I've just answered the question that I was, but for you, as time's gone on, what have you found that's has the most impact?
I think so. like, just to come back to what you're saying, I think you're totally right that, you know, to say, oh, I'm focused. To be honest, there can be somebody who's really good at technical SEO. You know, there can be somebody that's fantastic at technical SEO, and they're the technical SEO guy or girl, and you call them in when you have a technical SEO issue.
Yeah.
But that kind of person, I don't think doesn't fit in all environments, because you might have a site that's had an incredible developer that has foundational SEO knowledge, and you can find some small things to improve.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, you know, are you increasing site speed by a couple of % or something like that, or
something like Shopify, where a lot of it's built in anyway.
For sure. You know, Shopify has really good foundations and like some quirks and stuff that I haven't worked on a Shopify site in a little while, but like, and I think in some instances, technical SEO is just not the answer. Obviously, I've had some sites where I've had massive wins from technical SEO. Because, you know, I had one where there was a part of a page that was being pulled from an iframe, but the original, where the iframe was being pulled from, had a robots.txt rule that, you know, it basically stopped Google from seeing part of the page,
Right,
you know, for the non-technical listeners. And, you know, we got huge, massive spikes in traffic immediately. But I would say those cases are pretty rare, and they also depend on the site. Like a huge site where you might genuinely have problems with, you know, I'm talking like hundreds of thousands or 1 million plus pages, where you might have crawl budget issues. Technical SEO can go a really long way. But I think for me, I think maybe it's just because I've dealt largely with, you know, a lot of e-com, a lot of small and medium businesses or services business, where they might have a really high revenue, a lot of customers, but they might only have a couple hundred pages on the website.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, you know, a majority of the time I'm focusing on things like information architecture, so internal linking. I'm focusing on content. In terms of increasing traffic, content is usually the go-to. It's pretty much one of the only ways that you get traffic as an SEO that you have direct control over, because if branded searches, you don't really have a lot of, you know, obviously you can lobby for that and explain the importance, but
and usually that comes anyway, unless you're doing something really bad, or you've got a competitor who's got the brand as their URL or something like that. You know, you usually get traffic from your brand. That's not what you're really worried about, is it? It's about the service and products.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the main, largely for growing traffic, it's about content. But then I found in the past a lot of businesses struggle to have a strong user experience on the site. So a homepage that explains what they do for a start. You know, I have worked with the clients where you land on the homepage and you're like, wait, what do they offer? You know? And then a good architecture, and, you know, demonstrating like, who are we? What do we sell? Why, you know, what problem are we solving with this product? And even just things like how to contact us, you know, just making sure those fundamentals are in place, I think can have a huge impact for some businesses. But, you know, majority of the time, if you're talking about traffic growth, it's usually through content.
I'm sure you've got some interesting stories from clients and things like that, you know, things that have happened or been said. You will have had this a lot more than me, probably. It's the you get a lot of pushback on some of the things that you want to say. Perhaps they're on NDAs with their clients, so they can't talk about the projects they've been on or where they've been or what they do, or perhaps they're just I get it a lot where it doesn't sound like us. It's not me. It's not us. And then you kick it around and you change things, and then you find out actually perhaps they don't even know who they are, you know, what they're looking for. Like that.
I think what you've identified was quite interesting is people think that they have an SEO problem, but at the end of the day, really effective SEO works on top of a strong brand that has a really good product that's making a huge effort to bring that product to market. And if they're not clear about who they are and what they do and, you know, why their product is the best fit to solve a customer's problem, then you really often have a roadblock, you know.
Clarity, you know,
for sure.
for each page, you know,
Clarity,
what do you want it to rank for?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Clarity and simplicity, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and even like economy of words. Like if you talk about content nowadays, like it doesn't, that whole skyscraper technique, you know, that popularized by, I think it was Neil Patel at the time, and it really did work. You know? He was doing what worked at the time. I found that doesn't really work anymore. And the content, like, some of the content I've seen historically rank in the past and just absolutely kill it can just be a couple hundred words or just one table, because that's what the user wants at the end of the day. And obviously sometimes you do need to go into more depth, but if you think about each page is a product and each product solves a specific problem. And I think that you have to go to the business owner and say, okay, what specific problem are we solving, and what's the most effective way to do that with this one piece of content? So sometimes it's a table, sometimes it's a really long piece, you know, and sometimes it links through to other pages, and sometimes it's like, can we get who do this really well, those kind of like comparison sites in the financial space where it's like, you know, compare credit card rates and their tables, like that's a product that they invest a lot of development time in, because they know that people want to compare and filter and that's, in that instance, that's the best solution to the problem, which is I just want to find the best rate and I want to compare and be able to click through to them, you know, through to the credit card companies.
I remember us talking about, you sent me some clips of a guy talking, he's an SEO, can't remember his name. And it was, the big theme of it was do real world shit.
Real company shit.
What would a real business do? Don't try and manufacture it, you know, and that's probably why I started this actually. You know, to create some backlinks without manufacturing and some content and activity around the business without actually trying to create that isn't there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Like I did a talk for a while that was called, you know, it was called something like what it takes to create really good content. And like some of the main things that I would touch on would be that good content has to be sincere, and you can't manufacture sincerity, you know, like, and it usually requires a lot of effort. And you probably encountered that quite a bit, where you say, okay, we want to do 10 pieces of content this year, or, you know, 1 a month or 2 a month or 4 a month. And they go, well, that's a lot of work. And you go, well, yeah, we're trying to grow a brand here, you know? So that was a big thing for me, that good content has to have that sincerity. And it requires a lot of effort. And going back to the AI conversation, that large language models, they're predictive and they're naturally a race to the middle, because they're trying to replicate what would the standard response be in this instance. And there's an interesting thing where if you put verses from the Bible in, a lot of the AI detectors initially would say this is AI because it was so likely that the text would run on like that because it is the Bible, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Okay. Yeah. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's a race in the middle, and I think that if you're creating content, you have to be thinking about how can I add to the conversation? How can I create a genuine, create something that's genuinely valuable and uses real expert opinions and adds to the ecosystem? Because you think about Google, like we were saying before. Our content, like the search results is their product. That's how they make their money. So we have to earn our way into those top 10 blue links, you know, or a featured snippet. And it's like, how can you just copy another piece or write something similar or generate something with AI and then complain that you've done all you can? It's like, actually you have to think about, like, how am I going that extra step and adding to the conversation?
We had I think it was the first one we ever did actually. We had a few copywriters talking about AI, and he said, with AI, we're not competing against, you're competing against average content.
Yeah, that's true.
And so as time's gone on, it's made more and more sense, and something I feel that in my mind, I've seen a trend where actually competition for the top spot has probably got a bit less. And if you're providing really top quality, so because the number of pages online has gone so massive that actually if you're not providing a good page, or nothing's changed, or no one's come to visit it, Google's I'm going to de-index it.
Yeah, definitely.
So more and more pages have been
not
de-indexed.
Even crawl it in the first place.
Yeah.
Crawling's so expensive.
Exactly, yeah, because they've got environmental targets and costs, and well, if there's no traffic and nothing's changed on the website, well, we're going to crawl it less often, and we're going to de-index a lot more pages. And so I'm like, okay, so then there's less competition because there's less indexed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you've got to really keep creating really good content that adds value to your customers or whatever.
Yeah, and I've had that before when people have come to me and said, the page isn't being crawled, or and quite often people misunderstand and they say, "Oh, we've got a crawl budget problem," and I say, "Well, no, actually, what you've got is if it's a smaller site, if you rent out, cranes or industrial products or something like that, and you've got a catalog, you've got 100 pages, and you've not got a crawl budget problem, you've got a crawl demand problem, because you're not offering something that's valuable, and like it's, I don't know what the figures are, but it will be billions, trillions of pages probably into, and the cost to crawl that, and like you say, the environmental cost, like it's
and they're under pressure for that. I've read something Google it's the German search engine. Is it Yandex or something? Or is that someone else?
Oh, that's
not the German, Russian. So the Russian one.
Yeah.
When you look at to rank on the Russian,
from the leak, the Yandex leak.
Yeah. If you're not getting traffic and there's nothing there, they won't index you. They won't rank you for anything.
For sure. Yeah, and obviously from the Google leak as well. I think one of the metrics was something like site impressions. So when you're making a business case, agency or in-house for blog content, I almost start to think of it like mass marketing in a way. Like, so obviously the main objective of blog content should be to drive revenue, but in the larger process of building a brand, like if you can have that brand in front of people, again and again and again through informational content in your niche, preferably, rather than you see it sometimes where it's like I saw a great one on Twitter, and it was like a gambling company that had done a study on hay fever, and it was in like the Sun or something like that, and it was like like cryptogambling.eu, surveyed people about their hay fever. But I think that relating to the Yandex leak, the Google leak, it seemed to indicate that engagement with the site in general is it's sort of like a rising tide lifts all ships, and I think that's another real value of blog content.
User generated stuff. I mean, that goes through to the technique of the long tail keywords. So rank number one for a load of lower searches, and then the big ones will look after themselves, and you'll find yourself the whole thing will just go up.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like this is something I say quite often, and you probably get it as well, where clients will come to you and they'll say, "Oh, I want to rank for." I'm trying to think of a good example. Somebody that sells, maybe like a cooling unit, like custom computers or something like that, and they say, "Oh, we want to rank for computers." And you go, sometimes it's off the mark, but sometimes they might start and we need to be number one for this, and you've got huge businesses. You're dealing with the Currys, PC World, sort of the giant kind of companies that have, huge positive customer sentiment, huge amounts of engagement already from the products, and it's like
30 years of
branding,
advertising,
advertising, I don't know, sponsoring football teams or whatever, it's like, but huge brands. And I think a good thing about the long tail keywords is that you build the foundation, you build the engagement, and then you start to maybe link through to those kind of more sales focused pages. And that's a challenge. I think that sometimes the path to monetization can be difficult for some companies.
Okay.
And I just think that's a challenge that you have both in-house and agency.
I
think I digressed so from your original question there a little bit.
I can't even remember what I said. What the question was. It was all about really like you and what you were. And I think
yes, what I was talking. What I talked about. So mainly content.
We have this in my business where I've got Nathan, who's has a degree in screenwriting, and he's done copywriting courses. And then I've trained him on SEO. So he has an idea of what reads well, and
probably
what
story, right?
And what that looks like or should look like, that's engaging. Also can then relate that to more of a scientific kind of, well, we prefer it to be kind of around this length and include this and answer these questions. And he's really, really good at that. And like you say, your experience is probably more you're more of an SEO than he is, a lot. But those kind of two skills are really important.
I really agree with that. I think screenwriting is probably an amazing foundation for SEO.
Right.
And I think that's why journalists can make such good SEOs as well. And I think the people that struggle sometimes are the people that come from that like technical data science background, and not because they don't understand SEO really well, but sometimes they struggle with the content or the soft skills to get the work across the line and sort of lobby internally. But for when it comes to screenwriting, I think something I wish I had more knowledge about was, and my manager is really good at, is storytelling. And I think that can have a really big impact, creating a cohesive narrative, not just across a page, but across an entire brand, because stories are the way that we human beings can sort of compartmentalize and understand complex information and sort of chunk it and digest it.
I mean, we were obsessed a bit with time on page. And it's like, how can you keep people on the page longer? Because you could be ranking fairly high, and then you've got a competitor who's been doing it 20 years and really good branding, and you're struggling to like, well, how can we compete? Well, perhaps we keep people on the page a bit longer, and then that might give a signal to Google. This is actually good content and we should put it higher.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe people coming back to a resource, and it comes back to that thing of when I was saying in the finance space, building a calculator or making something that becomes somebody's like go-to resource, I think can...
That's a great idea.
And that's where you get into the... when you for certain businesses, sometimes SEO is not... Sometimes content is... that's why I say content typically solves problems, and sometimes the best solution is not words at all. It might be something like a calculator or a table. So I think when I usually think about there's I think it's like from his name's like Christensen. He has that thing about jobs to be done,
right?
And what's your customer or user's job to be done? There's a great example with McDonald's, where they were doing research around the milkshake, and they say, do we make it like creamier or sugarier? And what they found was a lot of people bought a milkshake early in the morning because they had a long drive and it was something to do, because it's frozen at the start and you slowly suck it through. So they made it more dense, which is, you wouldn't think,
a great idea.
do you know what I mean? It's quite interesting. It's like, And that's why I think agency owners and in-house people, we really need to understand our customer. We need to speak to customer service. We need to speak to our subject matter experts, the people that don't have a lot of time. We badger them for their time. And then we really try and understand what is the user's job to be done for a specific piece of content, and how can we be the people that facilitate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a clip.
Yeah, that's my ethos.
I think that's really good. I got into some form of Instagram hole the other day.
Yeah.
It came about by this clip
Instagram hole
with a guy talking about how they spent billions shortening the time from London to Paris on the Eurostar.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he said, that he felt that they were, as a, value for money, that they perhaps looked at it the wrong way, where they were they spent, let's call it 100 billion, something like that.
A huge amount of money.
10 billion, shortening the time by 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And he said, if you thought about it really, if they, he used this example, if you got 20 supermodels all serving beautiful food and champagne to everyone, I guarantee that hardly anyone would say, I wish this train journey could be shorter.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So it's not so much the time it takes, it's more the experience of the journey as you're doing it.
Yeah.
And I suppose, like you say, there was a link there somewhere in terms of
jobs to be done, knowing your user, and I think sometimes business owners will build a product and they presume that they know how their users are using it, and pretty much you have a lot of conversations, but I think you do need that continuous effort to understand. You shouldn't presume as a business that people want a shorter journey or a bigger meal, or it's like it helps to. You do sometimes need that out of the box thinking. It's like if you shorten a journey, but then you arrive at 3 a.m. rather than 6 a.m. when it's light and you can drive on the roads. Where's the use in that?
I think his point was, it cost you 500 grand rather than 10 billion.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
So anyway,
value for money.
Value for money. But your passengers or users would be happier at the same time. Yeah. I mean, we've gone down a little bit of a hole ourselves, haven't we? Yeah. If you were to give anyone any advice who thought, okay, I fancy SEO, or want to know more, I want to do it within my business, is there any advice you would give them anywhere that you'd steer them to start? Or, I know you've done a lot of training of staff and things like that.
Yeah. So I think if they wanted to do it themselves, or they wanted to hire an agency.
If they wanted to do it themselves.
Yeah, I would tell them probably. It's really hard because it is specific. It's some of the specific things you need to do, like writing good titles and descriptions, and even things like compressing images, and making sure sometimes you see a business owner upload we've completed this work on this site, and it's 7 megabytes, sent from my iPhone or something, and it's portrait and it's all, sometimes it is hard, but the advice I'd probably give them is to try to not overcomplicate it. I would think, clarify your message on your homepage. I would say make it easy for your customers to buy your product or contact you. I would say establish trust. Your website's your calling card. And I would say start to answer questions and genuinely contribute towards the internet through blog content, and tell people about it. If you're doing something really cool, it doesn't hurt to you know, contact the local newspaper or radio or post it on LinkedIn. So it comes back to what you were saying before about, you know, real company shit. It's like, do things that genuine businesses do, you know? It's like, it's not, it's SEO. SEO is really hard, but it's hard because it's brand building activities, and building a brand and building a digital presence is challenging, but it's a lot of the time it's not really rocket science, you know. A lot of the time it's about understanding your user and getting your product in front of them and helping them solve that problem. That's probably where I'd start, which is a kind of it's a hard answer because it's not easy.
No. I mean, you could even go, well, I'd get you to create a website first. We'll understand how to build a website.
Yeah, for sure. Right, it's a rite of passage breaking a website.
It is. And of course, you live in Australia, so how are you finding that?
It's great. It's really, really nice. You know, it's I moved over there 7 years ago now. And, it's not. It's funny. I'm the sort of person that I go with the flow quite a bit, and I love to sort of like collect new experiences, gather new experiences. When I moved over there, I didn't have an agenda really to stay there necessarily. I just thought it would be, you know, a cool thing at the time. And then 7 years later, I'm a citizen, and you know, me and my girlfriend, she's a travel nurse. So the last year we've just been traveling all around Australia, and you know, my company very kindly lets me work remotely, and they've got offices in a few cities. So I check in and I, you know, I'll go into the office and go to conferences and stuff. But it's a very good lifestyle out there, you know, and it's coming back, I've really been surprised how it used to be the case that it was much more expensive in Australia to live. But I don't think it's the case anymore. I've been really surprised with the, you know, the cost of living, how it's, you know,
ramped up.
For sure. It must really be, it must really be affecting people here as it is in Australia.
I suppose you've been out there, and we've had Brexit, and we've had obviously COVID and all that kind of stuff, and it's all impacted on the cost of everything.
For sure. And I think that's something that's probably kept me over there longer because, you know, as a young person, you leave the EU and you go, you know, for me, it was so much freedom, the idea that I could use that UK passport to go and live in France or Spain or Portugal, or, you know, and it's a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a shame.
It's a bit of a shame. It's amazing. I feel like we could talk for hours about SEO and all that kind of stuff. I know your role is more encompassing, and you're looking to take it more at a high level away. That includes SEO, but more of a brand and marketing and all that.
And I think, you know, thinking about how SEO's changed, right, and maybe how we can prepare for the future. And I think the future is, people talk about AI, but I also think that search algorithms are just getting so much better at discerning what's a genuine business. You know, we saw that with helpful content. A lot of niche sites really got, you know, eviscerated, and sometimes unfairly, you know, but I kind of just think that it's getting towards a point where, you know, SEO is very, very brand driven, and and I think the niche site people would probably roll their eyes, but to be successful in search now, I think you need to be building a brand. You know, you need to understand PR, you need to understand the technical stuff and content. So for me, I think that's a challenge for a lot of SEOs is, you know, they want to improve visibility by this amount or this keyword, but the amount of collaboration that takes with other stakeholders across the business, like I think that's where I see SEO going in general. That's where you know, that's where I see my role going in the future. And there's some great resources out there, like the SEO MBA. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
I think it's I can't remember if it's Will or Tim Tom Critchlow. I should really know that. There's 2 Critchlows in SEO, and he's an SEO MBA, and the whole thing is about, okay, so you want to write 100 blog posts, or you want to get the services pages ranking on the first page. It's like, now explain that to a guy that can't rotate a PDF. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the classic example that that you need to understand the fundamentals of a business and how a business makes money to really sell an SEO strategy and to build a brand online which benefits search. So you kind of you sign up for this niche SEO role, and then you find yourself with fingers in pies all over the business and having a lot to offer, which is super rewarding as well. Yeah.
Amazing. I think we're good on that one. It's been
Perfect.
great to have you on.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
And
a lot of fun.
I hope everyone found that as interesting as we did.
Yeah, I know. People are going, huh? Yeah, and it's nice to be the backdrop for the brownies, which I've seen online, and try some of the famous water. Crag spring water, which I'm a big fan of. So
the brownies are a great source of conversation.
Yeah,
People, we don't ever show it really.
Yeah.